Good evening, everyone. We will kick off our December 17th Lathrup Village Planning Commission meeting at 7:02. We have, can we please stand for the stand? Everybody knows. Yeah, tell me to stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I can do it today. Madam Clerk, can you have a roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Nordmo,
Present.
Commissioner Scussel,
Present.
Chair Stansberry,
Present.
Commissioner Hammond,
Present.
Commissioner Hillman.
Present.
Absent
Nope.
is Ms.
Present.
Commissioner Disick.
Present.
Oh. Okay.
Well, good evening, everyone. Before we begin, wanted to have just a few, I guess you call them, house rules to make sure everybody's on the same page. We got a request from someone who watches the video. So they were saying that they could not necessarily see when people were making a motion or seconding a motion. So I talked to the video people. They said they're going to pan the camera so people can see that. So there may be a delay in, we'll take a motion and then we'll kind of slowly move so the cameras can pick up who the person is so everyone can see who's speaking. If not, we'll all have to say, this is Commissioner such and such making a motion so everybody knows who's speaking. Second, to keep the Planning Commission in line with all the other public bodies, we all have a public comment section. Our public comment section, we never really had a lot of comments. But since we're trying to follow, I went back and looked at what we're supposed to be doing. We're going to try to follow everyone else. We're going to hold our public comment section to 3 minutes, just like everyone else. And I believe we actually have someone that can tell us when 3 minutes goes by. Yes. Okay. So when he looks at me and tells me the 3 minutes are up, I'll make sure to let the person know. Since we're all adults, we're all respectful, we're going to monitor, make sure we're respectful of each other's time, be professional about it. If we have public comments, we do ask that you give your name and at least the street name that you live on if you're in the city, so that we can recognize who's here, who's not here. I know nobody wants to give out their address on video. So, but if you can just give us your name and the street name, that would be very helpful. You're not required to, we just asked. With that, I want to make sure all the commission members have a copy of the agenda.
Yes, sir.
You should have received your packet from Austin. And so, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Or did you print it out?
I printed it.
We'll take a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I so moved.
I might suggest, if I may, especially due to what I suspect will be a lot of opinion on a few of our agenda items today, some of the public commentary might change over the course of the meeting. There may be additional commentary people might want to offer after they hear from folks who present and after they hear from us. So I might suggest that in alignment with something like the city council meetings, we add an additional public comment section toward the end of the agenda. I don't know if that's permittable or not, but
We can
would be a
add it, but
suggestion.
everyone has to vote and approve for that at a meeting, because based on the guidelines that I received when I was put on nominated to the Planning Commission, I have a list of what we're supposed to do, and we follow the same agenda that was in the bylaws. So if we're changing that, we probably need to say we're going to have a meeting to suggest we're going to change what's in the bylaws before we change the agenda, just arbitrarily.
A question for Leanne, then. Can't this body vote for a single meeting to add an
I
additional?
think you could vote to amend the agenda for today if you so wish, to say, add after new business, to add a new item of an additional public comment for items on the agenda. If you want to do that, you can
I'm
amend
sticking
that.
to the agenda as presented to me when I signed up. If the commissioners on the board want to make a motion to change the agenda, I'm here to accept the motion, but it's not going to come from me.
Sure. I'll motion to add an additional public comment section to be the new number 8, thereby pushing number 8, other matters for discussion, to 9.
Second, I'll second that motion.
We have to define the motion. You're seconding the motion to,
I'm seconding the motion to approve the agenda with an amendment to add a new item 8, public comment for items on the agenda, move other matters for discussion to item 9, move general communication to item 10, and adjournment to item 11.
it's been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You want to do a roll call since
Ken?
we can do a roll call to make it more clear for
Sure.
everyone.
Okay.
Commissioner Nordmore,
Abstain.
Normally, you need to give a reason why you cannot vote. If you're here, you should be voting unless you have a conflict for some reason.
That's not true.
Okay, come back to me.
I didn't realize that.
You can abstain for any reason you want.
That's right. Under Robert's Rules of Orders, you don't have to have you can just abstain.
Okay, all right, well, then we'll let him abstain.
Commissioner Scussle.
Nay.
Nay.
When Commissioner Disick was nay, and then Vice Chair Fobbs.
He's not here.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Chair Stansberry.
Nay.
Commissioner Hammond.
Yes?
Commissioner Hillman.
Yes.
So you still need a motion to approve the agenda.
That's right. So that motion did not pass, so we still need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and second to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Good.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
We have one nay, but the motion still passes. In your packet that you received, you should have also seen the minutes from the prior meeting. Has everyone had the opportunity to review those minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
I have a comment on, I believe it's page 4, the bottom paragraph. I'd like my misspelling of my name corrected.
What is the correct spelling?
Nordmoe. And there's
Oh, the
Nordell.
deer. Yeah.
We need a motion to accept the minutes with the necessary corrections.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for the November 2024 Planning Commission meeting with the stated amendment to correct the spelling of Commissioner Nordmoe's name.
I second.
The motion to approve and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Item 5 is the public comment. At this time, we'll open the mic up to public comment on items that are not on the agenda. No, just public comment, sorry, my mistake.
Good evening. For those of you who don't know, my name is Robin Roberts. I live on Lathrup Boulevard, and I'm the vice chair of the Historic District Commission. And there are a couple of items that came up at our meeting last week that I think are relevant to this meeting, so I wanted to make my concerns known. The first thing I was gonna say is, as a child, I used to go up and down Southfield Road to get to school. And whenever I saw Town Hall and the school, I knew I was in Lathrup Village. And it was basically the only thing that stood out that made Lathrup Village noticeable on Southfield Road. And with the plan that's being presented, I think that identity will be lost. The other concern was that the ordinance that they were given, the people were given, included bringing the buildings up to the street side, but apparently, my impression from what I learned last week was that when that ordinance was put in place, it was not taken into consideration that both the school and the church are historic districts and have different standards than a normal land use for the community. I mean, they're a separate consideration. And I have the impression that that was overlooked. So I would like you at some point to consider re-examining that ordinance and seeing if we can figure out a way to make it comply so that the two ordinances work together and not against each other. And last but not least, has an environmental impact study been done for this plan? I don't know who would be responsible for asking for that. But given the size of the project presented, I think that's a worthy thing. I'm not sure that the infrastructure here in Lathrup Village can handle the project as it's presented right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rick Wiz, I also live on Lathrup Boulevard. Speaking to the infrastructure being able to handle the project, I did some comparisons today. Basically, you're looking at a city block for this project. And I don't remember how many units they're talking about putting into this block. A comparable block is Lathrop and California between San Quentin and Sunset. That block has 18 houses on it. Okay, if they're looking at, seem to remember the number 60 units in this complex, is the infrastructure here going to be able to handle sewage, water, and anything else that 60 units would compel the city to handle? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak on a public comment? Thank you all for speaking. At this point, we'll close our public comment section and move on to old business and table items. At our last meeting, we had a site plan to review for 28317 Southfield Road, and the concern at that point was for the commissioners. If we remember, we reviewed the site plan, it was about the parking. And the concern was if they could get a parking agreement, then they would come back to get approval for their site plan. Attached in the packet are copies of the parking agreements with the tenants of the site. Right, Austin?
Yes.
Okay, so with that, that was all that was necessary for us to move forward for the approval of that plan? Or is there
Yes.
something else that I don't remember?
No,
Okay.
during last meeting, last month, the commission asked for the applicant to speak with fellow tenants in their building and let them know that they were coming in, what their proposed use of the unit was, and the potential parking impact on the fellow tenants. Each of the tenants understood and agreed that the proposed use was, should be permitted and that the parking would not be an issue to their understanding.
So the action for us this evening is simply is asking the commission to approve the site plan as was presented in November.
Yes.
Does everyone actually remember the site plan from November and the concern regarding, or you weren't here, I'm sorry, Jason.
No, I watched the meeting.
Okay,
I'm aware.
okay.
Yep.
Are we all satisfied with what has been presented by the applicant? Or is there some comment or discussion?
I would like to confirm, I think I put this together. Daryl Costello is the gentleman who signed the final letter, at least the final one in order of them being
Mhm.
presented to us. Daryl Costello is the owner of the bartending school, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The rest I'll say about this is we gave the team behind this proposed indoor golf club some homework, and they turned it in on time, and I'm satisfied with their submission. So I really appreciate that. I hope this wasn't perceived as red tape or kind of undue tedious tasks to check boxes. At least when I commented last time, I'll speak for myself, my questions and concerns about parking were directly in the interest of the property owner, as well as the other 3 tenants that will share that space with you once you move in. So at least from my perspective, I promise that wasn't red tape. That was the same type of diligence and compliance to the rules that I would expect all of your future neighbors to abide by as well. And I hope that would benefit your business as I was hoping the shared parking agreement will benefit theirs. So thank you for doing that.
So we
At this time, we can hold a vote to approve site plan.
You
as
need a
presented.
motion.
need a motion then to approve the site plan for 28317 Southfield Road.
I move to approve the site plan for 28317 Southfield Road.
I second.
Been moved and properly second.
I do have one comment.
Question? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay, before we get to the vote. So the third letter from Mr. Costello, it just acknowledges but doesn't agree to the shared
He
parking
understands. I spoke with the property owner on multiple occasions since our last meeting, and that is something they have in their lease agreement. The owner includes is that they will have to share the property's parking that is on site, and also this individual they spoke with, the applicant spoke with, and understands that the hours of operations and the study that the applicant put together shows that the uses should not conflict with one another.
Gotcha, great, thank you.
Motion's still on the table. Been moved and properly second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries. Item 7 is new business, which is the 2025 Planning Commission meeting dates.
Chairman, before we proceed,
I'm sorry.
sorry, I'm sorry, the device used to connect to the television is not connecting right now, and there should be another one up on the,
It'll be up here somewhere. It was down there yesterday.
Might be under the basket.
Thank you, congratulations.
Whoa.
Where'd you hide it? Mike was using it last night, where did he hide it?
I don't know what you're looking for, so I can't.
It's the thing he's holding, there's another one of those,
Oh, there's another one.
and it allows him to be able to present from his computer
I
without
don't know
being
why it's
physically
under a
present.
basket.
Oh, okay.
I don't think he looked at it.
No, it's a, he's looking for like a broadcaster, HDMI broadcaster.
Sounds real techy to me.
Yeah, no doubt. He's looking at it for a thingamabob.
That's why I have an IT guy.
Yeah,
Exactly.
You're all set?
we should be able to proceed. Thank you.
These must be some really significant dates you gotta put up on the screen.
No, that, so as in the commission bylaws, the commission meets on the third Tuesday of each month, and we have presented the meeting dates for 2025. So we just want to get a vote that these meetings will be accepted as presented, and we will publish it for the public to view.
Gotcha. It's not going up on the screen, is it?
They need to push the button on the, should go red.
Is it your intent to have the dates?
No,
on the screen?
not this
Okay,
part of the
that's what I'm
meeting.
waiting. I was like,
Sorry,
are we waiting
no,
for the
not
dates to
this-
show up
not
on the
this
screen?
one, but the next one will need it.
Okay. Everyone has a copy of the dates, it was in the
Yep.
packet. So these are the proposed dates for 2025.
Yes.
If no one has a conflict and believe the dates fit what the planning commission bylaws say anyway, is there someone that would be willing to make a motion to approve the dates for meetings in 2025?
I move to accept the meeting dates as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and second that we accept the meeting dates as presented by Austin for 2025 planning commission meetings. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none. Awesome, we're all set. Are you gonna send out, calendar notices?
Yes, that can be done. Yep.
Okay, just to make.
Yep.
Okay. All right. The next item on the new business is 600 Southfield Road, site plan. As was brought to us in the past, we have seen the site plan. We have an action item that has been presented to the commission regarding the site plan that requires us to vote if we're gonna set up a public hearing. Get the words right. So, Eric, we have an action item, so I prefer to start with the action item, and then we can.
Well, this one, just for clarification, this one's the,
Oh, sorry, wrong one.
Yep, yeah,
This is the one down the street.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, so 20.
There's still action on that one, though, too.
Yes, yep, and both on Southfield Road, which
Yeah.
the majority are, so
That's
easy
it.
to get confused. 26600 Southfield Road is an application for a reuse of an existing facility. The conversion is from retail to retail, which typically wouldn't require essentially much review of the ordinance, except that we would just need to determine that there's no additional impact. So if there was an addition to the building, then that would create additional parking spaces, for example. But this is just a reuse of the existing square footage. And so what would otherwise be an administrative review and approval becomes a consideration by the Planning Commission for the extent of the renovation of the exterior of the building. So that's what's before you today. The review letter walks you through some of the details of the ordinance that were applied in our review. The review summary outlines 4 different review points. That first being that the parking is compliant. So again, this is going from retail to retail. The applicant is taking what was once multiple tenant spaces and combining it into one. As I recall, the floor plans, that the center section is more or less the customer retail interaction, that there's storage of the auto parts on one end of the building, and then more or less the logistics of delivery and drop-offs on one of the other ends. So, but ultimately, it's all retail. They're providing 48 spaces to meet a 38-space parking requirement. There is a delivery area on the site plan. So on the north side, there's an existing curb cut along the side street. I believe it's Ramsgate. That will provide service to a proposed 8x8 delivery door. And so the standard for delivery vehicles is 10 feet by 40 feet, which will be achieved in front of or prior to on the exterior side of the 8x8 door. The other item, item number 3 in the summary, is for consideration of the waste. The applicant does not propose a waste receptacle or a trash enclosure, and they propose, per a note on the site plan, that the business will utilize the approved curbside waste service per the City of Lathrop Village standards. And then what's of primary concern with this application, and we did have some conversations with the applicant last week to see if there could be any alteration or update to the plan regarding the materials. So as the ordinance requires, proposed materials within Lathrop Village would be primarily masonry, brick, and masonry-related materials. The plans that we got on the screen, you can see, are a significant amount of metal siding. And so according to my calculations, and this is just based on me scaling the drawings, there's approximately 37% of the front facade being metal, or metal panels. That area is highlighted in green on the screen. What the ordinance states about metal is that it's limited to trim, and so you can have up to 10% of a building of a certain material of which metal falls within, other than brick or masonry-related type of material. But it's not allowed as part of the overall facade in any way. And so it far exceeds that 10% of trim by a 37% of the overall front of the building, if that makes sense. So this was the revision that we received from the applicant. There was a different iteration of the materials. And so we did bring that concern to the applicant, and they wish to remain on the agenda to have a conversation with the Planning Commission. But the expectation that was communicated from staff to the applicant was that the materials is not in compliance with the ordinance. So with that, the rest of the review letter talks about a few other details, but otherwise it's the materials of the proposed building renovation that's of greatest concern.
With additional conversation with the applicant, I'm assuming the applicant's not here.
I believe
Okay.
there's a representative.
You'd like to come forward now?
How you guys doing?
Good evening.
So we just discovered.
You are?
Oh, sorry. Skip that part. My name is Max with Skyline Construction. This is my partner, Lawrence Kuza. So we just discovered today that we're only allowed to do 10% metals. So we brought this up to the owners as well. We're the contractors working on the building. So he wants to do metal. He wants to almost replica of the Tesla dealership that just built. It's the big metal panels. It's very modern and it's new. He doesn't want to do all brick. It doesn't really fit the automotive look for him. So we're okay with putting more brick, and he is as well, but it's kind of a big building to just do so much brick and then 10% metal in the middle. I just, because it's a single tenant, I mean, it would look nice if it was more open. And I brought some pictures, I don't know if I can just pass them out to you guys, of the Tesla dealership. I just took some pictures and printed them out.
Yeah.
We're doing the same panels, same distributor, same manufacturer. They're 2x4 panels. That's kind of how he's doing this. He's building
Thank you.
maybe 10 more stores, and he's doing the same look all the way through. So for him, it doesn't make sense to do one of them here, all brick, and then the next 10 in metal.
Yeah, so this is his flagship store for, he's normally used auto parts. This is gonna be his flagship for new. And that's the reason he wants to like preserve his brand as like nice metal opening at the front. But, I mean, obviously, that's up to you guys.
So on the screen, just make sure, Austin, on the screen you have, it looks like it's written, because on what I have, is it written? Is that
This
written?
was what we received from the applicant earlier today. This was,
Without the brick.
yeah.
We were gonna do all that, sorry to cut you off, Austin.
So are we saying the little space where it has brick is now brick, or where
Yeah,
it has brick is not brick?
Where it says, where
Where's
it's
brick
marked
written?
in a red box with brick above it, that
Yes.
would become brick.
Okay,
And then so over the windows would be the proposed metal panels, and then around the front entrance would be metal panels. And we received this afternoon, so we have not done a calculation to see what is the percentage.
But
okay.
it's, so it presumably is less than 37%.
Yeah.
But we don't know if it's
It's-
10% or more or less.
No, not at this time. But they wanted to come forward to get feedback to better understand what your opinion was on their plan.
Since I'm not familiar with, I've seen the metal, I've seen the Tesla. Are those, all this stuff is fire,
Yes,
Fire rated.
fire rated, fire insulated, everything from the manufacturer.
is this, are they already pre-paint, pre-cut,
Pre-cut, prefab, come in that color.
pre-color, all?
Yeah, so you can't tell in the picture, black and white and green. It would be dark gray on the bottom brick, we'd paint the brick bottom gray.
Mhm.
Above would be a lighter gray, and
Okay.
then the trim, the metal all the way around the front entrance, the 40-foot entrance, would be like a red, like a cherry red.
Oh.
So it's almost exactly
Just like that.
Tesla colors. Yeah, so he literally called me and was like, go take pictures of the Tesla dealership, that's what I want.
Okay.
I was like, okay, fair enough. And if you guys do want the brick in the two middle areas where it's written in, we could even do like a nicer stone if that works for you guys, and then leave the brick on the sides how they are, so it'd go like brick, metal panels, nice masonry stone, and then back to metal in the middle. That way it's still presentable and it's nice. So for him, it's a big deal because it's such a busy road. He wants this to be his like standout store. And I think for Lathrup Village, it's a good thing, right?
I understand the word flagship.
Yeah.
And are there questions, comments from the commission?
Either brick or masonry stones are both allowed as building materials inside the ordinance for this district, so I don't see an issue with either one of those. I do have some concern about the percentage, like the ordinances are written for a reason, understanding that this business owner wants this to be his flagship store and for it to stand out, but it also needs to be cohesive with the community and the standards of other businesses in the community, right? So if you look at like, you know, the building where 44 The Burrito is, just south of AT&T store, right? That was recently updated. The Village Square strip mall, like just across the street from City Hall, was recently renovated, and you know they use different materials, but they're able to stay within the guidelines of the zoning ordinances. So from my perspective, yeah, including stone and having some metal, but as long as it's within the statement of the zoning ordinances, which limits the metal trim to 10%, I'm okay with it. But I would want to, there is a possibility we could approve a site plan with that expectation.
Yeah.
So then you guys are going to have to figure out how to meet that expectation, right?
Mm-hmm. And we're willing to work with you guys however you'd like.
But it may not meet what your customer is asking of you.
Yeah. I think the main thing for him is why he wants so much metal. It's such a long property to just put metal in the middle, kind of like it takes away from his look that he's going for. That's why he wants the paneling and the big nice panel. So maybe that's why he requested so much. I personally told him to do masonry. It's half the price anyway. This paneling is very expensive, and he's adamant, and he's like, I want these panels. This is how we're doing all the other stores. They're building one in Utica, they're building one in Monroe, and he's like, this is how we want them. I was like, okay, I'll go and talk to them.
So you got your marching orders?
Yeah, set me on a mission.
Eric?
So I did a quick analysis of revisions to this image on the screen, and so if you remove the two squares on either side of the center of the building to make those brick, that reduces the metal component material to 30%. So those are about a total of 6%. And that's just for the front of the building. That's not accounting for any other sides, which we don't have information on the other three sides of the building.
There's no metal on the side.
Okay.
So leaving the brick.
Okay. Okay. So it reduces it to 30%, approximately.
Do you, as a contractor, are you aware of any other material that would kind of give them the same look but that would still be able to fit into the
Stucco?
ethos?
I know. You didn't want me to say that word, I know.
Well, no.
But stucco is
the squares, because that's what he wants. He likes the grooves.
It's the grooves of the squares.
Yeah,
That's,
which
okay.
is nice.
Not cement board. Is that an approved?
Party board, yeah.
Maybe cement fiberboard.
Yeah, you can offer it to him. I just know.
His is more of a design look.
Mhm.
It's more about the design, because from a distance, you'd have to be really up close to know exactly that it was all metal.
Yeah.
But from a design standpoint, he wants to have the square look,
panels,
the
yes.
panel look,
Yes.
but not necessarily. So I think it's just a matter, from the contractor's perspective, how can you achieve the look and still be able to come up with a 20% reduction in metal?
I know.
Oof.
I know.
All right, I can't remember off the top of my head, but the other buildings that, like when they did the gas station and some of the other buildings that have been updated, they have some of the same kind of square look, but I cannot remember what the material is.
I believe it'd be stucco or at least a Dryden or something like one of those.
Okay.
Where they can just, they put it flat and just carve it in.
And make it
gives
look
a
like it's-
square look, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think he wants that because it gives more of like the cheap look. and because this is his first property where he's selling new parts, there were before only used parts. This is their first new parts store, so they want it to be more presentable, more nice. Usually if you see their other stores, they're brick with some paint and a door. This is a big deal for them, especially on such a busy road. So they really want it to like stand out and be nice and be very presentable to their customers.
Any other questions from commissioners? Nobody has any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you for providing an update to the 37% number. I was interested to hear what that might be. And I certainly understand the business owner's desire to have a certain look, and I too appreciate the look. Where I'm stuck is there's homes behind that business and surrounding that business built between the 1930s and 40s that are also adamant about maintaining a certain look. And I'm concerned that one nice look, although it is nice, in a vacuum, may be inconsistent with the other nice looks that are in that part of town. And a 20% variance beyond what's permissible seems like a big 20% as well. So I too would appreciate perhaps a compromise of a material that is similar, could achieve a similar look, but stay within the requirement or closer to it.
Any other comments, concerns?
I mean, if we'd like to go on record, I would share the exact same concern that Commissioner Hammond and, I'm sorry, I forgot your last name, sir.
Hillman.
Yeah, and Commissioner Hillman presented, and just I think it would just stick out and just be an anomaly in the village.
Do we as a commission want to direct the contractor to go back to the owner, or do we want to, as Jason said earlier, approve the site plan but make it contingent on fitting the ordinance? Or do we want to table this and let them come back with something else?
I would prefer that they come back with something else. I'm uncomfortable with approving a site plan that we're saying needs changes to it. I think we need to approve a plan that's complete and not partial.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, when there have been some deviations from the ordinances that are relatively minor, and can be then I'm more comfortable approving a site plan with contingencies, but I agree with you, I'd like to see what the ideas end up being for something else that was proposed. That's more in line, that's in compliance with the ordinance.
I share those opinions.
So I would move to table this and for reconsideration and suggest that the applicant reconsiders the design.
So with that said, do we come back in a month, or is this something we can get going in the next couple of days and resubmit and get some table question? I only ask because we've been working on this since August, and we've just been getting hit with delays, not your guys' fault, on our end. So the owner himself is like, guys, I have people on payroll that are waiting to work in the store, so I want to get this open as fast as possible. So if there's a way we could get this going with some new material and a new look, or, to be more compliant, and we can send it to you guys and maybe not have to wait another month?
So for, the plan would have to be revised, submitted, and then reviewed by Eric and approved, fitting within the zoning ordinance. Or if the owner wants to proceed with the panels, he could ask for a variance, which then would go to ZBA, which the city ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals, is the city council. But either way, it would need to be voted upon and reviewed, so it could be submitted. Sooner is better, but we would need to review it and then bring it back in January for the Planning Commission's meeting to vote on it.
Question, Austin. The concern of the commission is the material which is basically the facade. Does that prevent any of the other work?
No, and they have been completing interior work because the use is permitted by right. So they are permitted to have an auto shop store in
the building?
In our district, yep. It's only now what the facade will look like. So what is going to be the finished material on the exterior of the building is what is need to be discussed in finance.
Okay, so now the question's over here again. Based on the conversation and based on what you've heard, if the commission votes to table this and you have to go back to the owner, understanding their time frame, you would still be able to continue trying to get the build-out done. It would just be the exterior that would take some time. Is that going to have a significant impact on getting the material for the outside, or?
It's not gonna have a huge.
I mean, because we're running into the holiday anyway, so I mean, nobody wants to say it.
It's gonna slow down regardless.
It's gonna slow down for
Yeah.
the next 3 weeks.
Nobody's putting metal up on Christmas.
Right.
You know, I know that. So the material won't be the issue. The problem with it is, so we're working on the interior now, but the entire exterior wall depends on this, or the frontage building, all depends on this approval. So they can't do any of the drywall, we can't do any of the window work, you know, we can't do any of the doors. We can't really do anything to that part of the building until, because we don't know what it's gonna look like. So I don't want them to start patching up drywall that's gonna break eventually, you know? So kind of like, we can do majority interior, but then we're stuck there because it's the frontage of the building.
Now, our concern, and make sure I'm following Austin, is the green. Okay, so all of the, well, not all the green, the 3 sections of green, the U and then the other 2 squares of green. That's really if the brick goes in the middle.
I would like to also say that the applicant originally had most of the windows closed. They were going to be closing those off, and they were very receptive to feedback and kept the windows as is. So it really comes down to the percentage of facade finishing material that is not permitted by the ordinance. So it'd be this metal.
It's just, so it's the green section.
Yeah, the green section.
Okay, the green section.
Everything else is permitted.
So if everything is, because the metal goes on top, it attaches. So if everything else is in a perfect world, if the building was being completed, everything on the exterior would be done and then the metal would go up. So the doors, the windows, all this stuff would still be framed just like they were supposed to be. It's just a matter of the finished material that would go in that space.
And the interior part that he's saying they can't complete on the front side of the building that's inside.
So before this property was, I think, 5 or 6 different tenants. So there's a bunch of single doors, double doors, single doors, which are gonna have to get canceled and bricked up. So you can see kind of where they're outlined.
Yeah.
So we gotta do that and all the other exterior part of it. So
But I mean, my question is all the other exterior of the building is fine except for just the green. So from a construction standpoint, everything else is being done, it's just what that finished piece is gonna go on top. So that wouldn't prevent you from putting in the doors, the windows, having it all, because the metal attaches to, I mean,
Well-
I just wanna make sure I'm following.
No, you are. Yeah, and it's just a bunch, right now the building is mostly siding, which was gonna get taken off, but again, I don't wanna bring someone to take it off and leave it looking like a sore
I
for
understand
you
that.
guys, you know? So I don't wanna rip up the outside until I
Until you know for sure.
what's gonna happen,
Okay.
because I wanna get it, get that going. I don't wanna rip it all apart, and it's just, it'll look like a beat down building for you guys, I don't wanna do that.
I got you.
I do want to make the statement there is precedent in this city for exterior work being done on the facade of buildings and businesses actively operating inside of those buildings. You know, there's a building across the street where existing businesses were there, they wanted to do an exterior renovation, there was a site plan review, we approved it.
Yeah.
Those businesses kept operating and they built, shrouds around the entrances and things like that to make sure that it was safe for those businesses to continue operating. So it's not optimal, but in theory, he could open the business while you guys are still waiting for an approval on the exterior site plan.
And just so it is clear that a exterior building permit could not be provided until approval from the planning commission.
I got you. So let's deal with reality here. It's pretty clear, even though we haven't voted yet, it's gonna get tabled.
Yep.
But since we know that we're in the middle of the holiday, and we know that the owner is trying to get this done, our next meeting, since we just approved it, is on the 19th. So that means between now and probably what I would say the 10th of January, not much is gonna happen because of the holiday. So that really only leaves another real week. So if you all can get with the owner, get them to try to come to some form of compromise. I'm not gonna say, you know, if it's not 10%, nobody will agree, but I think we're just trying to get closer to the 10% number. So maybe the facade can be adjusted to get closer to the 10% number, because we have gone over before, just not 20% over.
Got it. We get it.
That would allow enough time for you all to meet, for the holidays to pass, and by the time it's gone back to Austin, he'll have a pretty good idea when it comes back to us, because the reality is in the next 2 weeks, not much is gonna happen because of the 2 holidays. That only gives you 2 weeks after that anyway, so as much as I know he's in a rush, he's not expecting you all to be working Christmas.
No, we understand.
So I think if we agree to table it, which we haven't yet, we're gonna motion in a second, that would give you enough time to get with the owner to come up with a plan to try to get as close to or not far above over the 10%, understanding the design, and then when Austin comes back, we'll have it in our hand prior to the 19th, and then we can pick up just like the gentlemen that were here before you.
Yep.
Okay,
All right.
so, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good holidays.
You too. With that, Mark?
So the motion is to table.
You were about to make.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we table the site plan pending an update to current city ordinances, and that we review this at the next planning commission meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and second that we table the site plan as they get back to the owner, get back with Austin. All those in favor of tabling it, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, hearing none, that motion carries. I gotta get back, move the agenda off my screen, I'm sorry. Oh, you've got the screen on, you can put it up there.
I also have this agenda.
Yeah, well, see, this has all the details.
I know.
All right, Eric. 27700 Southfield Road.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, 27700 Southfield Road. This is an application for site plan review and approval from the Planning Commission for the preservation of the historic Annie Lathrup School with proposed multifamily construction on either end, on the north side and the south side. This is in the Village Center district of the zoning ordinance, so the Village Center district standards were applied to the review. Unfortunately, one of the things that was determined when reviewing this plan was that in the Village Center district, the mixed-use buildings do not permit multifamily residential on the ground floor of buildings. So despite the fact that the building structure itself was reviewed against the ordinance for the Village Center district, we got to a sticking point where we cannot move forward until the issue of not allowing for multifamily residential on the ground floor of the buildings is addressed. And so with that, there's a consideration for the Planning Commission to look into potentially amending the ordinance to allow for multifamily uses on the ground floor of buildings within the Village Center district. And there is draft language that's presented in your packet. This also went before the Historic District Commission, and the Historic District Commission did make a motion to approve the, let me get this right, approve the project but not the plans. And so essentially the overall overarching concern was that the proposed buildings, the proposed new construction is not to scale as it relates to the school. And so while the Historic District Commission was in support of the project, ultimately, they did not approve the plans as presented to them, with primary concerns over the scaling and the massing of the project. So that's kind of a synopsis at this point. Did you have anything to add?
One of the other sticking points was the finishing materials on the facades that were proposed. So the Historic Committee approved the proposal, but did not approve the site plan as presented.
I'm a little confused because we have item 7C, which is a site plan review.
Yeah, we are.
And then we have item 7D, which is the request to consider changing the ordinance.
Right.
Yes, so,
You
one
talked
of
about
the
both, so.
issues that were, one of the issues that were brought up by the Historic Committee was the accessibility, the ADA accessibility of the first floor units. So we are bringing a proposed ordinance change to permit residential use on the ground floor. So we would like to have that looked at first before we move towards the review of the site plan.
Okay. Well, and by Robert's Rules of Order, we really should have switched those two items, but it is what it is.
So the Historic Committee were concerned that one of the intents of the project is for those residents who are getting older and see the burden of having a single-family home and maintaining the property as they get older can remain in the city by moving into one of these units on the ground floor and having it be ADA accessible and making ease of access so that people don't have to use stairs or walk to an elevator bank. So this is why we're presenting the proposed ordinance change first.
So the ordinance change is almost it's like a preparation. If the site plan ultimately gets approved as presented or with some modifications, it still would be missing the ability to have accessibility on the first floor.
Yes.
So coming before the commission now is for us to basically set up public hearing to change the ordinance. If the plan passes, then at least we'll know we'll have accessibility on the first floor. If the plan doesn't pass, it really doesn't change anything.
Yes. So we need to have a motion to set a public hearing for January to review the proposed ordinance change.
So the public hearing is really about the ordinance changing to allow for first floor,
Yes, first floor residential use.
which could or could not happen even depending on what happens to the site plan.
Yes.
We're just, and this is in preparation that if it passes, then it's the first floor is accessible. If it doesn't pass, it doesn't happen at all anyway.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm following. Any questions regarding that part?
So the justification was that to be ADA compliant on the first floor?
That was one of the concerns brought up by the Historic Committee.
I've seen plenty of nursing homes with elevators.
Yeah. ADA doesn't require, but they require certain entrances, certain widths, certain all these other things, but there's no requirement for it being on the first floor. It might be convenient.
Is it more about accessibility?
More about accessibility.
Okay.
But I mean, that's what I did for a living for 40-some years. It doesn't make any difference whether it's on the first floor or the fourth floor. Are the elevator buttons put in a place where somebody in a wheelchair can reach them?
Are the doorways wide enough?
Are the doorways wide enough?
Or the
Do
hallways
the
wide
elevators speak so that anybody who's, got vision problems hears that's what ADA is focusing on. They're saying no matter where you live, or what level you live, that it's accessible. So first floor, 12th floor, my daughter lives on the 17th floor in a high rise in Chicago, and it's accessible.
So there's multiple. One is for the project to proceed, is that it's proposed to have residential on the first floor. And
is
as
fine.
the
That's
village
fine.
ordinance.
That's obvious, but I mean,
But right now, the ordinance doesn't allow for units.
Right,
right.
but it isn't
That's not because, it's not because we're
ADA.
accommodating.
I think
kids with
the way they
disability.
interpret it is for accessibility. But the
Right.
question is more about changing the ordinance to allow
Right.
units on the first floor,
Right.
before we kind of get off track.
The
Yes, sir.
illustrations are a little confusing. And at some point, it looks like they're basement apartments, that they are literally at ground level. Is that correct?
All of the units would be at ground level, yes.
And the access isn't to the outside. Those, you access them from inside the building,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So. That's amazing.
So the idea is just basically putting units on the first floor as opposed to trying to put stores or something on the first floor.
Right.
So was the idea behind the ordinance to have businesses on the first
Yeah.
floor or
Yes.
something?
Yes.
Historically, as it was presented when I joined the commission, the Village Center Master Plan was designed first that everything had to be right up to the street, basically, and that everything had retail or some type of business on the first floor. No living on the first floor.
So that's the origin of this exclusion,
Yes.
okay.
Which is also, when you look at the plan, why the village, the master plan for the city says everything has to be up so close to the curb. But, which is probably why that's in there too. But this is about the fact that the first floor did not, under the ordinance, allow for residential. Correct, gentlemen?
Yes.
Yes, this would allow for a use that's different than what's currently in the ordinance. So the design standards would still be a focal point of moving forward. But it's the change of, or the allowance of a different use.
So we're asking if we can set a public hearing in January to change the ordinance to allow for residential on the first floor.
On the ground floor, yes.
I'm sorry, on the ground floor. That's what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure I'm, you're looking at me. I'm just trying to make sure we said it correctly. One more time. This is about setting a public hearing in
to review a
January.
proposed ordinance change
to-
to permit ground floor residential in the village center on the ground floor.
Okay.
I move that. What you said.
I like that one. I didn't see I didn't see it in the packet though. I missed it.
It's here on page 64.
Oh, that's, I probably zoomed past page 64. It's been a while. I remember looking at it, I just didn't remember it was in there. So
Yeah, it's way at the back, yeah.
Okay. So it's been moved to set a public hearing in January for the ordinance, to change the ordinance to allow for residential
use
in the
ground
village
floor.
center on the first floor.
Yes.
Been moved. Is there someone willing to second it?
I'll second.
Been moved and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none, we'll set a public hearing in January, and I'm not repeating the rest. Okay.
Good.
Good.
We can move on to site plan review for 27700 Southfield Road.
Okay. I have a question, and because you attached in our packet the minutes from the historical commission's meeting, it was pretty clear there were some particular items that they were concerned about. Could we start with that just to make sure, or before we look at this whole bit of plan, because we're trying to work in tandem with each other. I'm just trying to get a clear understanding of what their concerns were. Eric identified them, he's called them out by letters, but I mean, from a conversational standpoint, was it something more general, or was it just something more broad, or was it?
There was reference that was made to the section of the ordinance that lists criteria, and I'm just trying to find it within the minutes here. But as I was stating, it was essentially
If you
linked
need
to.
some help, there's a person from the historical commission here.
Yes.
Just in case you.
Yes, she could probably
I can read.
reiterate.
There was a certificate as part of the ordinance requirement that the applicant, a certificate of rejection of the plan. But I believe if I could confirm that as presented was what was sent. So I can read that to you if that would be of assistance. Let me just find it right here. Okay, so basically, so as you were informed, there are two processes. One was the proposal, the other one was the plan. So there was a motion that the proposal to have, a development there was approved. Then the second step, the motion on the plans failed, and I can give you the specific sections, but in summary, it was the majority of the Historic District Commission members found that the plan submitted adversely affected certain criteria contained in the city's historical preservation ordinance, to wit, the relationship and compatibility of the exterior architectural features of the structure to the rest of the structure, mainly related to the size, scale, and location of the proposed new construction. So they did reference the certain ordinance sections specifically related to that, and basically what it is there's the two wings, the two new portions that will be constructed that are required to be pushed up to the road by the ordinance that is in existence right now. It goes in front of the existing historical school building. So that was in contrary to some of the requirements of the Historical District Commission ordinance, as well as the federal, I believe.
Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation.
Thank you, yes. So, and please, since you're here, if you can correct me if I'm misstating that, but that was the basic crux of it, was that because of the location and the scale of the new proposed additions, they felt that it took away from that, the importance, prominence of the historic building itself. Correct?
Because, okay, you're saying because the buildings sat up against the street?
Correct. And I think actually the commission member here said even when she would go down Southfield Road, you would see those buildings more so than the old, than the historical building. Yes, so they're kind of in front, but then the applicant can address this as well for different reasons. They felt that it was a courtyard and they wanted, so there's some back and forth, but basically that was their interpretation of the criteria in the ordinance, that it did not fall within the requirements for them to approve it.
Thank you. Austin,
Yes.
the way the buildings sit, that's probably what's in the master plan, isn't it?
Yes, the
Okay.
master plan requires new builds to be within 5 feet of the lot line.
Gotcha. Just wanna make
5
sure.
feet of what?
Of the lot line,
Gotcha. The applicant's here.
yes.
If you have comments or,
I have comments, but I wanna make sure I'm following the meeting.
we're at your, this is the,
All right. I'm still learning.
What? After all these years?
we're at the part where we're talking about 700 Southfield Road.
Oh, probably not up yet? Where sit, where do you want me?
You can sit.
Good evening, everybody. It's good to see everybody again.
You are.
Sam, Cerno Company. So, this obviously has been going on for quite some time. And I'll try and be as, articulate as I can, but we have had countless versions and countless meetings with Jill and Eric at Giffords. We've brought this to planning, I think, officially, or at least a pre-meeting at least once, but we've had, closed, kind of conversational sessions about the school and all the things that we've been trying to do. Personally, I feel I have to do something with this property, and right now it's a lose-lose situation, I think, for everybody. I have to pay to carry it. It's every time there's a storm or something happens or there's vandalism, you know, we've got to beef up security. It's a monstrosity, just the size and the scale of everything that's going on. So I think we all understand. I mean, it's really been tough, and I'm sure it's tough for the city of Lathrup, that it being, you know, one of the largest parcels, it being one of the most significant buildings, I think, left from a historic standpoint. And you know, I was you know, personally disappointed from the Historic District Commission, not because I don't understand where they were coming from. It's because I personally put in so much time and effort and, you know, gone through 8, 9 different site plans. The challenge for us, and if you guys don't know, I mean, adaptive reuse is our specialty. We've been doing it for the last 20 years. We just finished an old church in Birmingham from 1926. Our headquarters is in the historic 1939 post office. We've done 2 other buildings that are over 100 years old recently, and so I feel a connection to this building. I think that it's a beautiful building, and it would be a shame to, you know, watch it continue to rot or have to raise the building. The challenge is where it's sitting on the site. It's sitting in the middle of our property. I've tried to, in the past, get control over the Annie Lathrup Park in the back, but due to the challenges that we kind of ran into with the city of Southfield, we decided, and this was in talks with the city, hey, let's beautify that park, let's make it an amenity, you know, even more so for the city and for, you know, the development. I don't personally care if we only had 20 units on this site. To me, I'm trying to kind of flip the Rubik's Cube to figure out what makes sense. There's not enough demand for the retail aspect on the first floor. So I've had, you know, some challenges with the retail, but we've been, you know, given the investments that we've made recently across the street, but it's still, the tenant pool is really tough. So that's why we kind of looked at, well, what's the actual demand here? The demand is for housing. There's a significant housing shortage in the state of Michigan. There also happens to be, it's not affordable, but the housing that is, I would say, attainable for doctors, nurses, people that are, you know, some of the pricing of the housing developments that are going on right now, like in Birmingham, Royal Oak, Berkeley, they're extremely high per foot. So for us, we really looked at what the demand was, the market study, and, you know, moving the buildings back was one of the sites that we had originally had, but with the residentials, we need to have parking. So it's like, well, we originally had a version where there was parking in front. And so I guess, not to go on too much of a tangent here, but I'm really trying. My company is really trying to figure something out that the community can be proud of. And, you know, if you know, we're open to any suggestions, but the last version that we had, however many months ago I was here, we had like 170 units, right around there. And in working with Kevin Biddison, we realized it was just so much. It was like cramming everything in like sardines. So we really tried to add a lot more green space in the front and in the back. And I understand the point about the fact that if you're driving up and down Southfield, you're not going to be able to see the school as well, but I can't physically move the school. We originally had units in the school, like some of the other developments, you know, in the state, but given the multiple bids, and I know cost isn't always a thing, but it's extremely cost prohibitive to put apartment units in the school. And I still, in order to preserve the school, we have to spend millions of dollars upgrading every single system in there and preserving the you know, the architecture and the exterior. So that's why we need some scale. And the other good news is that there, in my opinion, I believe that there is a demand for housing. So, you know, without going on too long about it, I mean, those are maybe some of the reasons why we've kind of gotten to where we are. And I've tried to take planning's input, Giffords' input. I've met with some of the residents in town. You know, maybe I could have done a better job at that, but again, it wasn't due to trying to just steamroll through. I mean, we've really been trying to figure something out, because I just, you know, the comment about losing identity, like, I can understand that, but the identity now is not something that I feel is, you know, it's just not a good situation for the years to come. So that's my long opening and intro. So.
So if I could, we have some images I'd like to just run through, just to give you some additional, visual input. You're okay, I can.
Oh, all right.
And, Sam can jump in at any time. But just real quickly, I'll try to go quickly here, but in the center, in front of the old school building, we've created an area of about 1/4 of an acre of a new park, public pocket park, if you want to call it that, where the old flag was, and where it used to be a public space in front of the school. So that's the area that you see in front of the building, in between the two new residential wings there. So we feel that that is going to really improve the front of this school and kind of bring back the visual of that. What we have done in order to help isolate the school away from the new additions is to provide a separation, a glass separation on each end. And I'll get to a spot that shows it here. So you see the separation between the old buildings and the new buildings. It's a 2-story glass separation on each end, which allows the existing brick, the existing chimneys, all of those things to wrap around inside. And as the 1-story elements of the current school will be removed on the back, when we come back around to the back side, then we'll be keeping everything, all of the 2 corridors that are in the school, and then we'll be replacing that with a new brick wall in the back, and we'll look at that. But the idea here is to create a public space again in front of the school. Yes, it's winged by these 2 residential elements, but we feel that this helps to create a sense of place here. As of right now, yes, you can see it on Southfield Road, but it's an old boat sitting in the middle of a parking lot and some grass. And what we're hoping to do is bring it back to a sense of place, a sense of presence, bring the flagpole and the seating areas and public areas back to the front of the school, and give the community access to that again. Again, I'm just gonna run kind of around the project. But again, here you can see the glass element on the far right that is the entrance. Again, trying to create, this sidewalk element that the Village Center District requires. We've discussed with Eric and Giffords about additional seating and trees and those types of things that would be part of that we would be adding into the facility. And then when you come to the inside of the facility, you can see again where we're separating the existing school. This would be new brick to match as closely as possible to the old brick on the back side, but giving a new entrance and a new location for all of the apartments to come into the building there. They would have entries on either end of it, entries in the center of it, and then entries on each of on the wing areas. This area down the center would be a direct route from the new structure all the way back to the park, the city park. We want that to feel like it's part of the development. We expect that would be used by all of the residents, just like people in the city use it at this point. We would be seeing that park from any of the floors that are on the back side. So again, trying to make this a part of the city park, the community, the street front at Southfield, but having green space and public space on both sides. Again, here, this just shows that connection point between the new and the old. The new would have a similar brick where it connects, and then it would spin off to some additional materials as it wraps around the building. This would be a new entrance to the backside of the building, new outdoor areas. You can see the 2 corridors that exist in the school. Those are going to be new activated corridors, as we'll see here. New outside dog area to go along with the one that's there. And as we come inside, then the idea is that the old gymnasium will be revitalized. We would open up the wall, leave the structure in place, which are the white piers, open up the wall so that we can bring new daylight in. All of the existing balconies on the second floor would be opened back up. The existing windows and limestone and everything on the inside would all stay. This could be utilized for all kinds of community events, sporting, community meetings, private, public meetings. Again, you can see the balconies up on top. Those are closed off now. Trying to basically just bring some new life to this old structure, but keep the beautiful elements of it. These two corridors would be widened more than they are now. They would be utilized as common areas for work and study. We would have work share spaces that would be leasable spaces within the building. We would have a cafe area that would be open to visitors, would be open to residents of the building. Both wings of the residential will be connected to this, but they would be separated with locked doors so that there's security there. But again, we want this to be a facility that is utilized again by the public.
Well, I want to be careful with that because do you have a floor plan?
Yeah.
Is there a floor plan that we can go? Because we originally had this entirely for the residential. And again, this is through talking with the community and talking with the city. We struggled a lot with what to do with the old building. First, we had units planned in there. Yeah, this is a good one. And we finally came to the conclusion of, okay, this is one of the when I thought, retail, I thought, a sporting store or a restaurant or something. And I'm like, well, mixed use doesn't necessarily have to be, a sense of like traditional retail. So we got in talks with the gentleman who owns a co-working company, and he's very interested in bringing in like a shared like a WeWork kind of a concept into the school. So we thought it would be very interesting to bring that as part of the mixed use element into some of the classrooms. We also struggled with how wide the corridors were, so we thought, hey, why not be able to incorporate some of that? Because yes, work from home is prevalent. Obviously, there's the question, nobody knows if everybody's going back to the office, but although the units that we're designing are a little bit bigger than like your typical urban living, because we want to create this as a little bit more roomy for the community. If you don't want to sit in your apartment and work from home, we want you to be able to utilize the amenity. And so opening up these corridors, having a coffee bar, some kind of a, not like a sit-down restaurant, but something where you've got, a place to go and grab something as part of this, like, co-work, amenity for everybody, I thought was a really interesting way. And it also, kind of then led to the brainstorming of, well, we've heard a lot of comments about the community and how important this building is to the community. And so while, this is obviously, it's a private development, there's the classroom with the fireplace in it. There's other old classrooms that I think are, in at least the bones are good condition. And so it had been floated like, well, would your group ever be open to, hosting events and things like that? And the answer is yes. And I think by keeping the gymnasium as it originally was, we're trying to figure out a way to kind of have it as multi-purpose. So, like Boys to Men has reached out to us a couple times. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the nonprofit. I mean, like, how great would it be to be able to host a speaker or something like that in the gymnasium or in the classroom or something like that? So the desks that you see, in the room on the north, maybe they could be moved around and things like that, so that you could, kind of make it more versatile. And so by having the pocket part out front, by having the kind of mixed use with the commercial shared space, by keeping it a little bit open, I think that there could be a really nice element to allow the community to participate in this, and it not just be an amenity for the residents only. And that's kind of how it evolved from the last time. And I think it also works well because, again, I still have to cater to the fact that we have residential units that we're planning for, but the way that 1926 structure was built, we felt that, I mean, it's built like a fort, so we thought that by having that kind of mixed use element in there, you're gonna have enough isolation where you're not gonna be, you know, upsetting the people that are living on the wings to the north and the south, so. I just wanted to add that.
Yeah.
I thought the floor plan might be a way to try and show what kind of the direction that we were going at, but.
Again, this shows just a little bit more. You can see where the yellow ends on the left and right, that would be the glass element that separates the new and the old. And then where the heavy black line is, inside of that would be the current building with the main section of the building with the 4 chimneys. That's what you would see within that main center yellow area.
Yeah, so coincidentally, Puabic reached out to us because there's an old fireplace in one of the old kindergarten rooms. So that's gonna be something that we're gonna at least try to restore. And again, it would be really, I think, exciting for us if there was if the historic district wanted to host a meeting in there or something like that. Like, I don't know, it would just, for us, we would wanna be able to invite at times people to come in and utilize the space as an event space or to just host it, like us, you know, our development, I think, background is a little unique in the fact that we've been involved in Lathrup Village our family has been for a long time, and so, you know, I think going through this process, we really tried to figure out something that worked and also incorporated Lathrup into this, because I think that this is something that we're trying to build for Lathrup Village. Not just the school, but for the apartments as well, in the way that we're trying to design those, so.
So again, just, you know, showing how this building piece, you know, gets to be interacting into really the whole development. And all of these just kind of give you a flavor of what types of activities can happen within the building. This overall plan, again, at the bottom of the screen here would be the city park. We would be coming across the parking lot to that, and then this is the city's dog park area, which we would work with you to fix that up a little bit. We've heard that the local dogs aren't that happy with it, so we might be able to help them out there with that.
They didn't talk to my dog.
I know. My dog doesn't use the dog park, but he would.
It's your dog park.
So happy to answer any specific questions. Just, I know that's a lot of images, and I apologize, but it gives you a quick overview of kind of where we've come from. We feel that we are creating a really sensitive area in the front of the building, and that this could be a really dynamic little quarter-acre park to really showcase the existing building. And from the backside as well, it gets seen from this bigger area that's open in the back. I mean, if we were to push these buildings all the way to the back, I mean, we wouldn't even have access across the site. It's just a very, very tight site. Being able to get the number of parking spaces required, but also being able to get enough green space so that people don't feel like they live in a parking lot was really important, you know, to Sam. And you know, like he said, we've come from about 180 units down to 128 units, so it's really, you know, come a long way relative to trying to make this, you know, a green environment as well as something that functions under what the ordinance requirements are.
Well, I have a bunch of thoughts, but I do want to kind of call attention to some of the things that were mentioned in the public comment section about the city's infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So adding 128 units with approximately 2, maybe 2.5 people occupying on average each unit, and that's a big increase in consumption of water services and sewage services. So have you gotten any work to figure out if the city infrastructure can support that? Given that, you know, we just had a water main break yesterday. I mean, we have problems in our infrastructure all the time without 128 additional units of people living in the city.
I mean, this has been, you know, engineering has looked at this on a preliminary level in terms of our site planning and where we're tying into, so we have gotten no comments relative to not being able to handle the capacity, so.
And the city's civil engineering contractor did take a preliminary look at the site plan, and they do believe that there is capacity for the utilities to provide to the site as proposed.
That's one of the things we asked for too. I mean, yeah,
No, I'm glad you brought that up. That was the question that was brought up by the public.
Absolutely, it's a good
Has this
question.
been looked at? The answer is yes. It's great.
There's reference to underwater detention capacity in some part of your drawings. Is that part of the plan, and could you describe what it is and how large it is?
I don't have the exact size of it, but I mean, it would be just an underground water storage so that when drainage drainage storage, so when it's coming out, it's being restricted flow before it goes into the city system, so. Because we don't have area on site to retain above grade with a retention pond or something like that, so it's an under asphalt system that's in pipes. You wouldn't see it, wouldn't know it was there, but.
I have a comment and a question.
Yes.
So comment first. I think the work you did to re-envision school as a mixed-use property or parcel is really, really forward-thinking and smart. I like the idea of open spaces or a shared work space, and I'm really well done. I think that was really well conceived and beautiful renderings. I express the same concerns that were in the public comment about engineering. With 120 drains and people pouring who knows what down them, is there some kind of environmental mediation that would be in place to keep cooking oils out of our wastewater and things like that?
Yeah, I
Or
think
sewage?
there are, grease and sediment,
Traps.
traps that you can put in, like you would put in for, restaurants, like if you're doing retail restaurants and strip centers, things like that, oftentimes there's an underground, containment for that before it goes into the system.
So the lender that we're talking to, which the whole financing is a separate conversation, but they're going to be, I think, really picking all of that apart. Because that's not just a concern from, our standpoint, the city standpoint, which it should be. It's also a concern from a lender who has a property as collateral. So I think that those are all really valid points. I wouldn't be able to get into like all the technical aspects of it personally, or maybe Kevin would to a preliminary level, but I'm glad that you guys are bringing it up because, right now I think we're in the site plan stage and we're in this schematic stage, and as we go through our drawings, right, there's schematic and then all the way through construction documents, and so I'm not sure at what point we have to be presenting all of the systems. Maybe it is through site plan.
It would be part of the site plan review, would be getting approval from engineering after we get approval from, for the zoning requirements.
Yeah, and our civil engineer is Noack and Fraus, so I'm not sure if you've heard of them, but they're a 100-year-old company out of Pontiac. They do all of our engineering work. They're extremely reputable, and I feel very confident, not 100% because, I want to bring this up with them and make sure that they've really looked at the city infrastructure, but I feel confident that, they wouldn't be charging us an arm and a leg and putting all these packages together and consulting with the architect if they didn't think that we'd be able to fit this and tie into whatever it is on the site, so.
Part of city plans, some of the city guidelines refer to resiliency. This is a community that has a lot of power outages. We're entering a period in world history where we're having climate extremes. What would happen if we had, for example, a power outage during a week of 100-degree weather, or a week of 0-degree weather? This is part of the attraction here is that we would want to be able to make this an affordable site for seniors. Would this become a crisis that the city would then have to manage if that building becomes, well, 100 degrees inside? I had to work all summer once with a building where the air conditioning failed, and we only had 4 windows, one of which was in my office, in the corner, but it was 707 West Milwaukee or something like that. But
So,
it got awfully hot, and now you hear about people dying, especially seniors dying in apartments that can't be cooled. So that's at one end. We have not only the DTE end of this, but also we're in a period of worldwide historical instability where our very systems can be under attack. There was a brief period a couple of years ago when somebody sabotaged the main gas supply part of the infrastructure, and the gas kept flowing only because, I don't know, I think they had factories closed down, or to allow the residents to continue to get gas supply for heating. So what would be the element of resiliency addressed in these buildings with all?
sure. So, I mean, it being a rehab of an existing school, we're gonna have to put all new systems. So it's a historical structure, but we're also constructing, brand new construction. It's gonna be in compliance with, the building department. It's gonna be a new building. One of the other things that I think that we're gonna be required to do is have some kind of Energy Star rating with the building. So I'm not saying that we're gonna be able to make this like a LEED certified building, but there's gonna be some kind of element that's environmentally forward thinking. And so I just, I think that it's probably going to be a situation where, of course, I mean, if the power went out, we would have, I guess I could say that our building's gonna be compliant with all of the requirements that we would have to have. And I think going with an Energy Star rating is probably gonna add more bells and whistles that are, I guess, typically required in new construction. So, I mean,
You meet requirements, but
if the power goes out, I mean, I don't know that's something that's not necessarily within our control. I mean, there might be backup generators or things like that that might, temporarily provide utility service, for the common areas or for the individual units. And you make a good point, because based on our research, the population in this area is an older population. It's gonna be a mixed age building, but we're seeing it's gonna be, it's gonna be people of all ages, but there will be, we're anticipating, a lot of the residents are gonna be, 55 and up, so. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
well, it's obviously a problem that wouldn't have a ready-made solution if we actually confronted it. What's the,
Yeah, we'll have a yeah, that's what I thought I said, yeah, we'll have a generator.
You'd have an emergency generator to handle a condition like that. It's not something that's gonna go for weeks, but, you typically, a power outage is a couple of days, hopefully,
At the most.
Sometimes it's a little bit longer than that, but that would be the idea, that you would run the basic services, and, like air conditioning or heat.
I just think we should assume that things will get worse rather than better. Maybe not on the DTE end of things, but in terms of the climate and vulnerability of our community to sabotage. Addressing the affordability side of things, you have other apartments, structures that you manage, I'm sure. For these apartments, what would you project to be the utility costs on a monthly basis?
So I would say, you know, they're usually, I mean, they range depending on the building. This being a new building and it being energy efficient, I think that the utility cost would be relatively low. I don't know, I mean, in the peak months, you know, you may be well over $100 a month. On the other months, it might be a little bit less, but I'd say on average, you're, you know, around $125 a month for utilities for an apartment.
I'm living in a little bit of an island in that my house has solar and it's very insulated. And our house, I just looked at the numbers today, and both the heating and both the gas and the electric bills both happen to come out to about $37 a month average for the year. And it would be great if we could offer something. Well, let me start in a different way. Geothermal is one way of reducing heating and cooling costs, but it doesn't work for the average homeowner because it's really much more efficient when brought to scale. Here's a development that could bring it to scale. There's a building downtown called the Green Garage. It's a Model T or Model A dealership. That is a shared work site now. And I toured it maybe 10 years ago, but I was told that through geothermal, and I believe they have both geothermal and solar, but I'm not sure that, they brought their air conditioning costs down to $200 a month, or was it for the season, for the whole building. The older residents, I think, will look at the cost. The younger residents will look at values and cost to the planet, being consistent with where they want to be on the side of history. Are you offering anything in the plan that enhances the marketability to those values?
So I believe an Energy Star rating would do that. I think that goes above and beyond. Again, it makes it more efficient. I don't know all of the, you know, there's lots of different levels and ratings that you can go, but we're, I think, looking to try and go for at least a bronze. So that's going to give us, I think, savings on energy costs and aim to be on the sustainable side of things versus the way that things have been traditionally done with new construction.
Each of the units will be, it has to be on their own system. You can't do a common system in a residential development. You know, each unit has the ability to, you know, kind of control their own universe, so to speak, in terms of heating and cooling. Obviously, each unit will have operable windows, you know, in them as well. I'm really one for fresh air when I can get it, so I think that I'm glad we have that here. But it's going to be a simple system so that each unit carries their own, you know, their own system.
I think Dennis was asking specifically about the idea of using geothermal as a mechanism at scale. So have you looked at that?
We have. It's much less cost effective than what, I mean, this is very much, you know, getting to be a cost-driven project because of, and it's one of the reasons that the existing building has never been able to be developed, because it's just been too costly. It has to be part of a larger development. And, you know, it's just, we're doing that on you know, another project, but not of this scale. It's just cost-effective. At this point, it's a number that doesn't help the bottom line, let's put it that way.
Yeah,
And
so
we have to be able
geothermal's too expensive, and you aren't going to consider it. Or you did consider it and determined it was too expensive, so it's off the table.
Yeah.
Okay. It's fine. That's just a fact. It's, you know, neither here nor there. It's just a fact.
Austin, do you know what the anticipated revenue of this is for the city?
At this time, I don't have that number.
So one of the things that's been, the Cernal Company brought to City Council to consider on one of our study sessions is a couple of different funding options, one of which is called Pilot, which I can't remember what the acronym stands for.
Payment in lieu of taxes.
Sorry?
Payment in lieu of taxes.
Which is exactly what it says it is. It's a payment of something other than the taxable value of the property.
Yeah.
So it's not approved yet, it's just something we've been discussing. But until we come to a determination about whether that or some other mechanism would be utilized, it's hard for anybody to give you an idea about what the revenue to the city would be.
It's been a little bit of a game of chicken and the egg. So the project as it's presented does not, it doesn't, I guess to put it frankly, it doesn't pencil, okay?
Yep.
And in order for us to do this, we are going to be asking Lathrup Village to be making some kind of an investment through the, statutes that are available in the state of Michigan, which is why Michigan made these tools available, through the legislature to allow developments to happen in places where, we're not looking to be charged. If we were able to charge, $4 a square foot for an apartment, it would be a much different story, and those incentives wouldn't be available. So it's basically what we're looking for is from an investment from Lathrup Village to help us on the property tax side of things to help make this more of a viable project. On top of that, I also need an investment from the state of Michigan because I feel through our underwriting process, which has been extremely lengthy this entire time, with the investment Lathrup would be making if they would be open to it, which is what we're going to be asking for separate than the site plan, is I still have a large gap that I would be going to the state of Michigan for. So I have talked to the Oakland County, the trust fund. I've talked to MISTA. I've talked to MEDC. I've tried to go in for lots of different grants and incentives. And what's happening is, a lot of that money goes to, is allocated in different pockets. And I'm trying to make the argument to the state of Michigan that the strategic fund should consider Lathrup Village because the state's never made an investment in Lathrup Village. And Lathrup Village, through, again, I'll call it the vibe or the conversations that I've had in the study sessions, is that while we haven't figured out what type of investment and what mechanism makes sense, they would be open to some kind of a tax incentive to make this development happen. So I can say that while that hasn't been determined, the revenue will still be far greater than the revenue that the city is getting right now, which is about $15,000 a year.
And just for clarity, the city council members have written letters in support of this idea that the Cernal Company is taking to the state and to the county for alternative revenue options.
So it's very, to give you guys more visibility into what's going on, it's a chicken or the egg, because I feel like it's going to be, I shouldn't say easier, but because I'm closer to this community than I am the folks in Lansing, I'm getting the vibe that Lathrup wants to do something to make some kind of an investment. So I've gone to the state saying, hey, I have the support of the city. I've gotten letters of support, and we've been working with the MEDC for about, I'd say, almost a year now. And I think that we've made progress, even as much as this week, but it's extremely hard. So I've got, feelers out, or I shouldn't say feelers, but calls into Senator Moss, and I'm trying to get him to call people at the MEDC. I'm trying to get, folks in the community to call the MEDC to say, hey, you really should think about supporting this project for Lathrup Village, because we think that this is going to give some new life into the community. So it's a really long-winded answer. I'm just trying to give you the cliff notes to bring you up to speed as to where we're at, but separate than the site plan. So
I'd like to echo some of the sentiments Commissioner Disick offered at the beginning of his statements. I think the renderings are beautiful. I think they're imaginative. I really appreciate the time and care you put into consulting members of the community for how they might be able to better use this space. So I really appreciate that, and I wanted to say it first. Second, you were here, so you heard at various points in this same meeting lots of discussion about topics such as building materials and parking. And I understand that a change of materials is required to meet the minimum requirements the city has in place. There's specific notes about some of the paneling that's used in the new parts of the structure. I was curious, I want to talk about parking too, but on that point first, I'm curious if you've given any consideration to what changes might bring this project closer to being within the ordinance.
Well, on that particular one, I think the biggest item was, we did have some vertical metal panels, and it's really more of a visual look we were looking for, so we've talked with Eric, and you know, we could get the same effect with like what's called a board and bat siding. We would probably do it out of like a hardy board so that it's, you know, gonna last forever. And you get that vertical line, which would be a very similar look. That would be an acceptable material. The other siding materials, again, there's some vertical and horizontal of the same material of the hardy, as well as the brick and masonry elements. So it's kind of a dance of materials and costs and all of those things. We you know, architects always want to do a lot of things we can't always do sometimes, but we do have a bottom line we have to take a look at. So you know, we have tried where we make the connection to the existing building to do that with the brick that we're using on the back, and then as it folds away from the building, you know, we've gone to kind of a group of materials to go all the way rest of the way around the building.
Okay.
Before we get to parking, can I just kind of, because it's on the same subject, because I do want to call attention to some of the concerns that the Historic District Commission brought up in their rejection of the site plan during their meeting. So as part of the criteria for determination of the application being consistent with the what the Historic District Commission is trying to maintain, which is the historic look and feel of this specific property. So they were concerned about the two items under this criteria for determination section of the ordinance that talks about the relationship of the exterior architectural features of the structure to the rest of the structure in the surrounding areas, and then the general compatibility of the exterior design arrangement, texture, and materials proposed to be used. So it's definitely, the first time you came, we were just having a generic discussion and not an actual site plan review. There was like hardly any brick in the new structures. Now there's a lot more brick. So obviously you took that feedback and incorporated that into the updated renderings. I'm curious though about your feeling about the new structures, especially given that glass and some metal components in the context of the relationship of the exterior architecture in how it relates to the existing school building.
So
Are they
again,
compatible?
just in general, you know, it was really intentional to have the new structures not try to be historic in any way. Not even, it was also intentional to have, you know, a flat roof scenario as opposed to a pitched roof. We really wanted to try to make the historic building be something that was truly a different element on this development. That's why you see the separation there again with the glass element, trying to make that as almost invisible as possible relative to where the two buildings touch. And I'm just going to go back around to the front, but so I guess purposely, yes, they are different. One is purposely more modern. One is purposely adjusting the color of the materials so that, again, the existing building pops off. The whole idea of encompassing it into the central area in the middle, all of those things we feel bring attention to the existing building. We feel that the scale works to the building. We are up we are still below, you know, we're just slightly above the existing roof line. If we would have done, you know, gable roofs, we would have been, you know, much, much higher. Again, the idea was, don't try to make it old, make the two obviously different, and create space that, and materials that would make the historic building pop out. Yes, I understand it's not forward on the site, but I don't think that matters, honestly. I think, you know, setting it apart is what matters, and making a public space in front of it is what matters.
Maybe we've gotten feedback from residents that it does matter, that it's no longer, I mean, but I understand the reasons why, right? I mean, parking is we're gonna get to that in a minute, but that's a huge reason. And just,
That, in effect, it is part of the zone, it has to be 5 feet.
right, the master plan and the zoning ordinance that come out of the master plan require you to build these additions forward.
Yes, sir.
So,
Correct.
It's also the challenge of the site itself. It's
For
not,
sure.
this isn't like an 8-acre site, it's barely over 4.
right. No, that's right. And
you
the
know,
schoolhouse, like you said, you can't move it. I mean, it is where it is.
Right.
So you're trying to work with the constraints that you have in place, so I
Yeah,
get that.
if we, again, I think I mentioned earlier, if we were to push these buildings back even in line with the front of this building, we would basically cut off the back portion of the site to even be accessed from the streets.
Or reduce
It's
the number
just-
of units.
Right.
Pardon?
Or you could reduce the number of units.
I mean, we did. We try, again, I mean, I'm hoping that if I don't, I mean, it's trying to get the site plan so I can try and get the investment from the state.
Yeah, yeah.
To me, it really doesn't matter. I don't care. I just want this to be a successful development for, you know, to do something with the school.
So is there a reason why 4 stories instead of 3?
Um,
Because
yeah,
if you
I
did
mean,
that,
you
then
need-
like the
you
roof
need-
would be
you
more
need-
viewable, right?
Yeah.
Now you're not just seeing from the sides, you're not just seeing the chimneys, you're also seeing part of the roof.
Yeah,
Again,
I mean,
I think it's a number of units that it takes to make the.
But Sam just said he's not worried about the number of units.
Well, I'm saying I don't care. I am worried about it because I need to make it viable.
Sure.
Right now,
Okay.
128 units doesn't make it viable. You know, if I had 300 units, then I probably could, but I know that's never going to work.
Of course.
I also know that, like, if you look in the news of last week, a project in Grand Rapids just got a $6 million CRP loan. I can't get that.
Yeah.
I may not even be able to get 5. So again, I'm trying to play with the different puzzle pieces to try and make something, you know, work.
Okay.
And that's why we have the units that we have. Yeah. But personally, no, it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to, you know, build this giant complex. I'm trying to be able to balance. And I also think, again, I mean, 128 units, when you look at some of the other, like, larger scale multifamily that's gone on, it's not a crazy amount of units. You know, some of those other recent developments that have gone on, like the Apex and some of the ones in Oakland County, I mean, they're hundreds of units. Northland, thousands of
Yeah,
units.
that's ridiculous, yeah, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
I mean-
What the Ivy, do you know how many units are at the Ivy in Berkeley?
There's about a little under 100.
100.
Yeah, a little under 100.
But it's 2 buildings,
But that's
right?
also a 2-acre site.
Yeah, yeah, it's a much bigger site, yeah. A much smaller site.
Yeah, yeah.
How rentable are those ground floor apartments on the street side? How big of a challenge is it to keep them really viable, given the closeness to Southfield Road? Our planning documents talk about getting Southfield down to a 35-mile-an-hour boulevard. That ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, I hear
There
you.
was a news article last week about the Insurance Institute and Highway Safety saying 25 miles an hour might be too high a speed limit where pedestrians are present. How's this gonna really work?
So some units are gonna be more marketable than other units, and in multifamily, I don't think it's a question of if they're going to rent. I think it's a question of, you know, how much they're going to rent. I've done a lot of market research. The newest development within a 5-mile radius, and please feel to correct me if I'm wrong, is 42 West, which is on Southfield and 11 Mile. Those have units on the ground floor. It's 10 years old and it's sold out. The next newest development within the 5-mile, we call it the primary market area, might be Arbor Lofts. Again, done in the you know, in the mid 20th century. I think that this is going to be the nicest multifamily development within that area by far. And the other thing that decommoditizes this building, because multifamily apartments is a commodity product for the most part. It's very difficult to you know, differentiate yourself. But I do think that what we're doing in the community by preserving and keeping intact the entire portion of the old historic 1926 school, also having a park in the back, is going to make this a very marketable site. I truly believe that, or I wouldn't be going through this trouble. And I think that the 42 West development is great. I've been through it, but I think that this is a superior site, just given where it is and the amenities. You're right in the middle of the village center with the church and the city hall and the police station and the retail that's going to continue to get revitalized across the street. So it may not rent the same as a fourth floor unit, but I feel strongly that all of these units are gonna rent.
Unfortunately, there is a pretty good buffer, you know, there is a fair green buffer between the building and the curb on Southfield Road,
Right.
which is, some communities don't have that, so that is a positive.
Yeah, they look at something called like in simple layman's terms, because I'm also, you know, there's lots of different research and market studies that we've done. But if your market size is 5,000 units, and you're, you know, I mean, we have to capture like 3% of what the renter market is within that area, which is not a very high percentage of units that we have to capture. So I think that this will rent.
Help me to understand, I lived on the 20th floor of Lake Meadows in Chicago, and I assume building standards have changed, and building practices have changed since 60 years ago. But I'm interested in the interior walls between apartments. I know that our bedroom was here, and the guy next door had a TV next to the wall, and I could hear every word.
Yeah.
How are your walls constructed inside?
So the demising walls between units are a double studded wall with a space between it, with a a resilient channel soundboard and insulated, so.
I was hoping to hear that.
It's a really good system, and it gives a fire rating and a good sound rating.
So I want to go back to my second question about parking, but before that, a very quick story. I'm 39 years old, but I suffer from a little bit of arrested development. So it wasn't until I was 36 that I moved into my first single-family home. In advance of that, I lived in any number of townhouse-style apartments, or townhouse-style condos, or apartment-style apartments, or apartment-style condos. You name it, I lived in it, except a single-family home. But throughout all those moves, I wanted to ascend certain checklist items on the, oh, this one's better than that one list. So at the beginning, that looked like things like in-unit washers and dryers. And eventually, I moved to 3344 Hilton Road in Ferndale, Michigan, very close to street level. That was very close to the street. That was not a concern of mine, incidentally. But that was the first time I parked my car in a covered space since, I think, ever, because my parents didn't allot me one in the single-family home I grew up in. So that's my story time about parking, but I hope you can consider that story in my question about parking at large, which is, I am curious, it looks like you determined a 1.5 space per ratio, parking ratio of 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit. That seems low to me, but I don't know how you calculated that, so I was curious for how you could, how you came up with that determination. And I'm also curious if ever you considered covered parking or garage-style parking, because per my anecdote, that was very high on my list of, checklist items to secure, and I believe it would certainly impact positively the rentability and also rental price of these units.
Right. We've considered garages and covered parking, and at this time, we're not incorporating that because we don't know, we don't feel strongly that the incremental, just viability making sense, but there is a possibility that we might incorporate some covered parking. It's possible, definitely not garages, but covered parking potentially. Garages are also take up a lot more space. This is a very tight space. We know the ordinance, I think the ordinance is 2, but it's also possible to be granted 1.5, which is why we've spent many a times in our architect's office going through the various ways to make the parking fit. So we could get rid of more green space in the back and add some more spots. I mean, we've played a lot with the parking, and we feel that just going through this until we've been blue in the face, that this is the most parking that we can get on the site. I will say, the covered parking, it's a great story, I get it, and I can say right now we haven't put it on the site plan, but it's something that we're considering. I have to get further along on the process to see if I can make it work.
And you gotta keep in mind most of the parking is gonna be used by the residents, but you do have this intention to have this, public use space in the school that will also require
I know,
parking.
that's-
Not as often,
Right.
and maybe not as much, but
Right.
some degree, right, will
Right.
need to be required.
So the thing that I'm working on, and I probably need to revisit that conversation, but I've had at least 2 within the last 12 months, is potentially renting some of the spots in the neighboring church next door.
In the church.
I've met with them. There's a number of organizations that occupy that building, and great folks. They understand what we're doing. I've talked to them about our plans a couple times, so that would be a possibility. It is across the street, but the 4 properties that we own that are all connected have, I would say, ample parking that are above and beyond what is required. So we would also be able to use that as overflow as well. And if there's if there's a parking agreement that we need to make to encumber some of the parking on those properties as well, with some of the new, traffic improvements that Lathrup's making, I think that, that's something that may not be completely unrealistic. And if it is an event or something like that, that we have, what's nice about, I think, the back of this building, which is kind of like the entrance in a lot of ways, which is why we have the windows and we're trying to open it up, is having some kind of a valet station or something like that, so that if you don't want to have to, schlep across the street, then we would be able to, figure out a way to, have that service as well.
How would this work in real life? Nobody has half a car. So is Mary and Susan, both of whom have 2 cars, just fighting every day for a
Well-
spot in the lot? Or are these
Right.
spots assigned to residents? And how do you decide who gets 1 versus who gets 2?
So, I mean, we don't believe that with where the parking requirements are headed, again, through our own research, that, I don't personally believe that every 1 bedroom is gonna have 2 cars. So I think that if you looked at it as the ratio of 1 bedrooms, okay, having 1 car, and 2 bedrooms having 2 cars, that would be a way to look at it, and I believe that you're gonna get there. I can do the math on here, but that's kind of how, in the real world, like not looking at the ordinance, we kind of came up with, because it's not just what the ordinance is required, it's also like, are people gonna have a place to park? I think that if you go below 1.25 spaces per unit, that's where you start to get potentially in trouble, where you're underparked. Again, we've hired, professional, research, and again, every development, you have to have some kind of a market study, not just because it's required for a lender or city, but you have to do that research. And I've gone to every multifamily reputable guy in town, I've done the market studies, and parking was a concern for us too. So I think that, again, the number that we were concerned about was the 1.25. But again, for this to be successful, we thought 1.5. Now, as far as the commercial uses of it, you're right, that's going to be something that is, it's not included in the 1.5, but we also believe that we have the ability to get parking from other sites that we, are under, common affiliates in town.
And just to add on top of that, I mean, two per unit is an unusual number in most communities that we deal with in this type of housing. 1.5 is a very normal number, and most of the guys that I've done work with that are putting this kind of product up feel that 1.5 is more than adequate for what they've been doing in terms of historic numbers. 2 is actually a high number for most communities. So
I would rather have it be 2 if I could. I mean, I would rather have that, but I also am balancing that with the realistic requirement of what I think it really needs with the green space that's on the site and letting the site breathe instead of just being a parking lot. So a lot of different factors went into that parking count.
Also to the south is City Hall, and besides the designated parking on the north side for the police department, the parking lot is here. So if somebody were to go visit the gym, they could park here and walk over, and it's not too far of a distance.
So you have to get your shared parking agreement.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. I mean, we wanted to see the reaction, the reaction to it.
Yeah.
I hear that, and I would hope the city itself would be amenable to that, but the city wouldn't be, if your friend Sarah comes to work out at the gym with you, unless we put a billboard across City Hall saying this is where you park guests, Sarah's gonna wind up in the church or along the residential streets behind the property. And so my concern isn't so much about City Hall, but it's about the residential streets and the church property where those people will very possibly end up short of said billboard, which I don't think we want.
We could have wayfinding signs that would direct people to park in the public parking lot surrounding City Hall.
Okay. This is, I think, a question for you, Austin. When we were reviewing the site plan for the golf simulation business, the city seems to have its kind of pre-made calculations for how many parking spots ought to exist for a business like this. Do any such numbers exist for multi-family apartment buildings like these? Is there anything to consider this 1.5 spots per space against?
Specifically in the ordinance, I can't recall exactly where it states regarding multifamily, but the ordinance does permit 1.5 parking units for a property of this type.
Okay.
Just one question. This is kind of a fringe question because I realize the big thing is does the complex design work? And from an economic perspective and aesthetic. But on the affordability issue of living there, I mentioned utilities, and I gave the figure of $75 a month for my own home, but that includes my driving. Would you have any provision for charging stations? Whether I wouldn't expect you to provide that for free, but clearly the transition is in that direction right now. The surge in hybrid and plug-in hybrids. Yeah. The next step in plug-in hybrids, from my experience, cover most of an ordinary person's driving around town. But you have to have a place to plug it in. And even the utility companies quote the figure of $1.25 a gallon is the equivalency of being able to purchase your electricity from the utility company and use it to drive, which is still a good deal. So have you given any thought to how that could be worked in? I think it has more attraction for the younger set.
I thought the city was gonna put in a bunch of charging stations, and we could go to City Hall and use those. No, that's a good point. We should incorporate at least 1 or 2 charging stations in the site. I don't know if we have that now, but we should.
We don't, but we've talked about that, and it's just a matter of making sure it takes a little bit of additional power on the building service, but certainly a doable thing.
I mean, I have a Tesla that I lease, and yeah, I mean, probably should incorporate that here. So, point well noted.
We're just looking through the parking calculation standards and zoning ordinance, and there isn't anything that talks about multifamily. There's all sorts of other things. Motels and hotels might be the closest thing.
Is there designated guest parking to the north of the building? Is that what that is? Or is that the church parking lot?
That's the church, the current on-street
Yeah.
parking, that's the church.
That's
Right, but that's-
the church property.
Right.
On the north side, across the street, right?
I don't know, it's probably in the right of way though.
It probably is.
I don't think it's
I thought it
church.
was public parking,
I think it's
but I
public
didn't want
parking
to
because the
mislead
property
you.
line would be to the north of the sidewalk probably.
That's a good point, yeah, it's probably
So
public.
I think there's about 17 or 18 spaces there, if I remember.
So we voted to have a public hearing in January to discuss potentially amending the ordinances to allow for first floor multifamily residences in this district. If that zoning ordinance doesn't get approved, what happens to your site plan?
I mean, I don't, to me, I've gone through and spun wheel after wheel on trying to figure something out that's viable, and I really do believe that this is pretty close to our best foot forward. If we lost a floor, then I wouldn't be able to, I don't believe I'd be able to do this. I can't do it now, so I need help from, multiple sources, so I think that the gap would then be so large that, I don't think that there would be a shot, because there'd be other communities that would have more realistic asks from the state, so.
Oh, yeah, so the alternative would be asking for a larger grant from the state, the county, some other source.
Yeah,
And that would be less likely to happen versus the number you're going
Yes.
for now. I get it, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You lose basically 30 apartments if you lost a floor.
32, yeah. I mean, I can't lose one.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
that's my concern.
Any other comments, questions? Is that a no, or is that just?
I have
don't
no
know.
more- I have no more comments.
I don't have any
No
other
more
questions.
Austin, what is the ask outside of the public hearing which we've done? What is the ask from the applicant to the commission this evening then?
The ask was the feedback that you've provided. They've gone to historic committee last week, getting feedback. They've come here tonight, got great feedback from all of you. So now they can go back, look at the site plan, look at the renderings, and update them to bring back here to present to you before they put in the time and the cost for updating the site plan and the renderings based off of the feedback from both groups. They wanted to wrap up that listening with you guys and then see from there how to proceed with updating of the site plan and the rendering.
So I think the next step would be to ask for site plan approval.
So the next time we see this, it'll be for site plan?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Materials and things like that will incorporate whatever feedback, but I just don't want to, come off with the gesture that we're gonna come back with something that's dramatically different, so.
In the write-up from Giffords, there were some other minor issues, I'm assuming you guys have seen those?
We've talked with them about
Okay.
that, and those would be incorporated.
Okay,
Yeah, we just, again, till we had this meeting, we kind of wanted
I understand.
to wait and make one swath and everything.
So do you think we're planning, from a planning standpoint, our January meeting, or are you guys it's gonna be probably February when we get the next site plan to final review?
January.
January, we could bring it in January.
It's just a general question.
No, and we could
Just
do,
depends on how much time they need to review it, I guess.
Right.
that is true, for Giffords to do their second review.
It's Gibbles.
They
I
know
know.
time.
No,
I mean,
but-
Eric's
is
good,
the
he said a day probably, he could turn it over.
It's very efficient.
Well, he's so familiar with it now, it
Well-
should just be very quick to go back through it.
I'm just wondering, are we planning, do we believe that we'll be seeing the final plan in January or probably the final plan in February?
The goal is to have the plan
Mhm.
brought back in January. So first, we would do, the action item would be the proposed ordinance change, and if approved, then we go and do a review of the site plan.
Would the updated site plan need to go back before the Historic District Commission again?
It would have to get approval either from historic or be appealed to council.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha, that's all I was wondering.
Okay.
All right, no other questions, comments, or discussion regarding the site plan or the suggestions,
Thanks,
recommendations?
and that was a really good presentation. I appreciate the consideration that you've given to our concerns already, and look forward to seeing what's next.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm glad we spent a lot of time in tonight's meeting.
Yeah,
on
it's very
this.
helpful, I mean, that was hopefully getting some good input today.
Clearly, this is an important project for all of us, so.
For everybody.
For everybody.
It's a team effort. I mean,
Absolutely.
It's like, it's gotta be, I want it to be a win-win for everybody.
Yeah. I appreciate the partnership, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
All right, thank you. As we move on to other matters for discussion, it's back to Austin.
So we'll go on and look at the development projects update at this time. So 44 Burrito is updating feedback you provided to them for the outdoor patio that they would like to have installed. So they are updating their plans, and we hope to present them to you sometime this winter. For 27300 Southfield Road, exterior and facade construction has begun. It's just south of City Hall. The facade work is nearing its completion, and they're gonna be really getting into it in the winter on the interior. 27601, this is across the street at Panera Bread. They have ordered outdoor furniture to be installed in the public right-of-way area. And so as soon as it is received, they will be installing that furniture. 26600, this was just the proposal we looked at earlier tonight. So that they received feedback, they'll be updating the site plan. 27700 Southfield Road was the site plan we just reviewed. They received significant feedback. That was, thank you all for your time and patience. They'll be updating the site plan, we'll bring it back. And then 28317 is a golf simulator site plan that you all just approved. So hopefully they can get underway and get permitting soon. That's all I have today.
All right, thank you.
If I
Yes,
may, Mr. Chairman, as a point of order, if you're tabling the development we just reviewed, you should make a motion to that, to.
Because it was in the agenda.
Even though you don't know the date for certain, I would, whether it's gonna be January or February, you do need to state a date, or
Yeah.
else you'd have to renotice, so I would suggest tabling it till January, since you're gonna have a meeting then anyway, and then if you need to table it again, at that point, you can do so.
So I'll make a motion to,
Hold on, Eric's not, he doesn't have that confident look on his face yet.
I'm preparing to take note.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to table item 7C for site plan review for 27700 Southfield Road to our January meeting.
Second that.
So moving second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion carries. Was there any other item for general communication?
I just want to offer appreciation to Austin for the review, this update on all the projects that are currently in flight. It's well organized, well written.
And we also, I want to thank Elisa for the idea. We put a board downstairs when you enter on the City Hall side of the municipal building, where it will have, it's devoted specifically to site plan updates, and then also some other areas for DDA updates.
Oh, that's great.
Did you make it to the opening today?
We did, yeah.
How was it?
It was fantastic. We had Southfield Chamber there. Kelly was there. Jay got a great start, so please visit Jaybirds across the street here on Southfield Road, across from City Hall. Food and drinks are fantastic, so please go enjoy.
Thank you. If there's no other general communication, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
We are adjourned.